My name is Phumelele Zondi with your latest technology news from around the continent. Here's what's coming up in the program. We talk about Mobile 360 Africa. Preparations for the Rage Gaming Expo are almost over. We meet a Kenyan woman who is using the internet for her innovative business idea. The Digital Education Show showcased the latest technologies used in education. Hundreds of students, educators, business leaders, and government officials attended the event.
These are some of the fun learning tools showcased at this year's Digital Education Show. We asked a few students how they felt about the rolling out of these digital devices into the education system.
First of all, we carry a lot of bags, so the fact that we have textbooks on just one little tablet it's a huge relief.
The best thing about it is that obviously there's no weight of the school bags, and another thing that we get tired sometimes of losing pens, sometimes in writing on books, so it takes away the stress. You can just type. There's no teachers complaining about your handwriting.
Shows such as these have been quite prevalent this year. But the question is, what impact have they made in the education system thus far?
I would say the impact of technology in a classroom is massive. I mean, the possibilities are endless. The accessibility increases for learners to learn things and teachers to teach things. It also gives teachers the opportunity to really focus and zone in on the teaching, whereas the technology just sort of assists them and it becomes an aid.
The Digital Education Show opened its doors in Johannesburg and ran from the 6th till the 7th of October. It is a collaboration between the SABC Education, the Department of Basic Education and other partners in the digital space.
In over many aspects of our lives. The M-Pesa payment service in the Democratic Republic of Congo is used to pay the army's salaries. In Kenya, the same service is now the only payment method in certain modes of public transport.
In downtown Nairobi at a bus terminus, money is not physically changing hands as passengers prepare for a trip upcountry. Make no mistake, it is not a free ride. Technology is taking over Kenya's public transport system.
You book me through M-Pesa.
Guardian Coach is way ahead of the deadline by the Kenyan government banning cash payment on public transport vehicles.
The matatu conductor will have a unit himself, and we call it a till, but it's actually just another phone. And you'll just do a normal, Lipa na M-Pesa transaction.
Mobile phone companies have issued various businesses with unique codes known as till numbers. It is this number that the consumer keys on the phone to make mobile money transfers. The money goes directly to the business owner's account. The move is meant to lock in revenue for Kenya's taxman, the Kenya Revenue Authority, as it will be able to track data on tax compliance. For the vehicle owners, the system means a more transparent way of doing business.
It's some kind of accountability, because with cash, you find that there are a lot of problems associated with handling cash, especially during rush periods.
According to the economic survey of last year, Kenya's public transport is worth about $2.4 billion. Telecommunication companies are angling for a piece of this money. Safaricom's mobile money transfer service, M-Pesa revenues, stood at $247 million last year. The mobile money transfer service has managed to do what banks in Kenya failed to do for years.
We have taken financial services closer to the people. Yeah, mobile penetration is pretty high.
We've seen the advantages already. I don't think we can push any costs to them because it's doing us a lot of good. So even if we don't push the costs, still it's easy to manage.
Sarah Kimani, SABC Business News, Kenya.
Please confirm your details, please.
As we've just seen in that insert, a lot of people in Africa rely on their mobile phones to do different tasks. That's why there is a conference called Mobile 360 Africa. It's currently underway in Cape Town. The theme this year is accelerating social and economic empowerment. Joining us in Cape Town to talk about Mobile 360 Africa is Brandon Peterson. He is the contributing editor for Telkom Future Now. Hello and welcome, Brandon.
Hi, Subhamalade. How are you?
I'm all right. Now, Brandon, how important is Mobile 360 Africa?
Mobile 360 Africa is an initiative by the GSMA, and it's looking at how do we get the next 1 billion people connected in Africa, but also more specifically, how do we connect Africa, looking at the specific challenges that we face on the continent, and get them connected and, find ways to use a mobile to the advantage of all the people.
Mm-hmm. You've been attending a few of the discussions that have been taking place there. What are you getting from there? Are you enjoying them?
They're informative. GSMA has brought through quite a few leaders in their fields. Today I just sat in on a talk from UNICEF. I had a chat yesterday with one of the directors at the Mozilla Foundation, and learning from them, what they perceive as challenges is quite interesting.
Let's go briefly on some of those. You said you were in a talk by UNICEF. One would think that UNICEF is a children's organization, but how are they using mobile in what they do?
Well, UNICEF is looking at how do we get information when it comes to health services to the people who can't always access that information that they need. So they mentioned an initiative, and I speak under correction, but I believe it's in either Kenya or Uganda, where they are giving information to people, saying this is how you can get antiretroviral treatment. This is the sort of information you need to know without making them go in and get that information from a doctor. If you look locally, KZN, they're connecting new mothers with the doctors in the Department of Health, just giving them information. This is when your next checkup is. Congratulations on the birth of your child. So looking at ways to take the information about health and health services to people using mobile.
Are you finding that there are a lot of such examples in Africa, or they are still far and few in between?
You know what? I was sitting in a talk yesterday with a few colleagues from all over the continent, and one from Uganda actually mentioned a story about this farmer that she works with, and he unfortunately doesn't read or write English. He doesn't speak English. He speaks a version of the local dialect, but he's not able to read it. So when she's trying to give him information using mobile, what she does is she would use WhatsApp to sort of send him the message. Only then did she discover that he's actually not able to read that language. What he was actually doing was he was sending her voice notes using WhatsApp, explaining to her this is exactly what he needs. And he was using that feature, and they found that way actually works for them. So, there are many stories like that of people using existing technologies and adapting them to work for their needs.
Brendan, there are many similar conferences that want to look at mobile in Africa, or even mobile payments in Africa. What sets this one apart? What sets Mobile 360 Africa apart from the rest?
Well, what sets Mobile 360 apart is the fact that it's brought by the GSMA, being the governing body for mobile technology across the world. They've got the standard, they've got the clout to be able to bring in the people who are actually the decision makers and the people who actually help shape mobile technology across the world. Google has brought in one of the venture heads of venture to talk about how do we go ahead and monetize, and how do we go ahead and make feature phones and smartphones available to the masses, as opposed to the small percentage of people in Africa having access to smartphones and apps and that sort of technology.
And in terms of content production and using mobile devices, do you think that Africans are generating their own local content?
Well, that's a very interesting discussion, because if you look at the sort of content that you get on the internet as a whole, the majority of it is in English. And in all honesty, most of the world doesn't actually speak English. It's not the predominant language on the planet. And the problem that people have is when I go onto the internet and I do not speak English as a first language, I cannot necessarily find content in my language or content that's relevant to me. So what do? And that's one of the issues that they're actually trying to address through the GSMA and through the Mozilla Foundation.
And are there any solutions that are coming with that one?
It's a very difficult thing to deal with because of the amount of languages, dialects, and unique issues to specific countries and specific regions. But what Mozilla has done, for example, is they've got an app that they've just recently released, which actually you can download to your Android phone, and it'll essentially teach you how to code. So it'll help you create your own app or website by using templates, and thereby allow you to put the content that you are not seeing on the internet on the internet.
There's also an issue of businesses and governments, especially governments. Are they managing to speak properly and share the right messages with citizens using mobile?
Well, Deputy Minister Mkhize was actually there today speaking about this. And she said, government has made it a big issue in South Africa to push mobile penetration, to work with the networks, to help bring about more spectrum so that more people can have access, partnering up with networks such as MTN to go ahead and bring sort of more accessibility to people in South Africa specifically.
Did you speak on the expense of data? Because we can have conversations about the availability of information, but if people can't afford data, then it really is useless because they then, again, don't have access to that information.
Which was something that was mentioned today as well. That as well as the cost of the actual phone itself. Sifiso, who's the CEO of MTN Group, was saying that, one of the biggest challenges that they see being faced on the continent, and not just in the country of South Africa, is that the cost of a phone, the cost of a smartphone specifically, is still too high for people to want to adopt it. So when you're looking at the cost of a smartphone, he wants to see it drop below $20 a phone before people actually think, this is something that I need. The other issue, as you mentioned, of course, being the cost of data. And that's where things like internet.org, become fairly interesting.
Yeah.
Is it actually something that's viable? Is it not?
Yeah. Brendan Peterson, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Brendan Peterson is the contributing editor of Telkom Future. Now, after the break, we have a discussion about the Rage Gaming Expo. Stay with us.
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
Preparing for victory requires intense effort and teamwork. When you get to it, there is no turning back because all eyes are on you. When it's action time, nothing should stand in your way. Sports Live tackles and analyzes all the sport action. This is the home of all your sport news, updates and more. Sports Live weekdays at 8:30 p.m.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m, then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, women seem to be having many challenges in the gaming industry. Here are some of the challenges that women are facing.
Yeah. Oh no! Video games such as this one have had some tongues wagging about graphic violence against women in some games. In December 2014, American retail giant Target recalled the 5th edition of popular video game Grand Theft Auto because of something similar.
You're looking at two facets of sexism. You're looking at harassment online against female gamers, as well as gender representation in games themselves. It's not as equal as people think it should be. Females who play online, I think, get a lot more grief purely because they are female and they are, presumed to be worse at games. Gaming is predominantly thought of as a male hobby, and because of that, you get this nastiness online that really shouldn't be there just because you're a female who enjoys gaming.
Despite the harassment issues, female gamers face other challenges. Zoe Hawkins of online gaming publication LazyGamers.net feels that the gaming industry could be a bit more inclusive to the female gender in terms of marketing and content.
Now, around the world, a massive 500 million people spend 3 billion hours a week playing computer and video games. It's no wonder then that the Rage Gaming Expo is really popular in South Africa. To talk to us about Rage, which is starting tomorrow and continues over the weekend, is Michael James, who is the founder of the Expo. Hello and welcome, Michael.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right. The insert was about the challenges that women are facing in gaming. Do you find that women are marginalized in games?
Well, they do. I mean, it's an old industry almost. Well, not very old, but I mean, it's immature. So, but articles like that and the stuff that goes on overseas, and it highlights the problem more and more. So I think the more people talk about it, the more people discuss it, the more it gets highlighted, the less it will have an impact, and eventually it'll all mature, and everybody will be, like normal with it.
And would you find a lot of female gamers nowadays?
Oh yeah, that's growing all the time, which is fantastic. I think that's where that type of article comes from. Is that more and more girls go online and then they encounter like people that maybe aren't used to dealing with them properly, and then that sort of has a bit of a backlash, and then there's a response to it, and then something happens on the internet. So it's very good, but we are seeing more and more girls playing games all the time, which is obviously excellent.
I just mentioned the numbers, 500 million people worldwide. How popular is it in South Africa?
Well, let's look at it's as popular as anywhere else. I mean, wherever you get cell phones, computers, PCs, consoles, you can have people playing games. I think the kids, like with Minecraft, for example, is a big one. They're all playing it. They're building homes and houses on their own. Like I know some kids are recreating their whole house in Minecraft. So, when the parents see that, they think it's like Lego. So I think it's popular around the world. It doesn't really matter what country you're in.
And that's the reason you brought Rage. And is that the reason you say Rage is so popular in South Africa?
Well, we started Rage to grow gaming in the country. So, but how popular it became is sort of, we couldn't have even imagined how it is. But it's sort of indicative of the growth of the industry. And then, because the whole world is growing with gaming, we're seeing that natural progression in this country as well. So we're kind of lucky because, we don't really have to work very hard every year because there's more and more people playing games and getting involved in the geek culture, which is kind of what Rage is all about. And so the more people that come to it, the more people hear about it, and it just keeps growing like that.
It's more than just a gaming show, is it?
Oh yeah, definitely. We started off as gaming, but now you can find superhero stuff there. There's comic books, there's artists, there's cosplay, there's esports. Besides on computer hardware, you can buy stuff there. So it's sort of that whole culture of geek culture and sci-fi, that sort of a thing, is what Rage is all about. And the people that love that sort of lifestyle and that sort of stuff, that's what Rage is for.
Let's talk about the growth of it over the last years, from when you started to what you are expecting this year.
Well, we started the show, it was like a really small little block in the dome, but now we're sort of busting out of the dome. It's, we're really having every year to be very clever on how we maximize the space, and we've got to keep widening the aisles because the show gets busy, more exhibitors come. So we have a lot of tricky challenges to overcome there, but I've got a very smart team that makes sure the show runs like clockwork. And every year we're seeing growth. There's more and more people coming, more and more exhibitors. So I'm very lucky with the shows. I've never really seen a year where it hasn't grown. So, I'm grateful for that.
What can people expect this year if they're coming to Rage?
Sure, it's a crazy show. I think if you haven't been to Rage before, it's sort of a mix of gaming, geek culture, technology, science fiction, superheroes, and more importantly, a lot of fun. Because you won't see a sad face at that show because everyone's enjoying themselves. Because it's exciting. There's always something new and exciting there.
Local developers. Are we seeing some of them there?
Oh yeah, we've launched an initiative. We did a couple of years ago with a show where we have local guys who make games that sort of exhibit them at Rage to people that come to the show. So we have, I think it's about 8 or 9 or 10 local developers at Rage this year, showing off the games that they've been working on the whole year. So some of that stuff's quite incredible. I was having a look at it this afternoon, and there's really, really, really very talented.
Let's talk about some of that.
Yeah.
The stuff you're looking at. What did you see?
Well, look, it's mainly just a construction site at the moment. But, we've got people that are testing out games and putting up wallpapers. So, at the moment, the show has sort of been built. And I'm just poking around, asking questions and seeing if everyone's behaving themselves.
Well, I'm asking about the stuff that local developers are coming up with. Yeah. If you can just describe some of it. And I suppose the type of games that they're coming up with.
Well, there is one, it's a taxi game where you ride a taxi around Joburg. Of course, that's a typical one. And then we've got one where there's a guy he's built a house in the woods, like an adventure game. And you go in there and you've got a sort of a mystery to solve and that type of thing. So it's any kind of game you can imagine that would be the normal market. We've got guys that are making games like that in this country.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Michael James.
No, thank you.
All right. Michael James is the founder of the Rage Gaming Expo. Let's take a short break. We'll be back right after this. We live in a digital era, and the number of Africans with mobile phones is rapidly increasing.
Twitter use is predominantly being done on smartphones. This is a very African phenomenon.
Here, there are constantly new innovative ways to make the internet more affordable. With that, we're seeing protests against governments proposing methods to limit access. On Network, we give you information about all of this. We also have new computers, games, and robots.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.
Let's do this.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now let's go to Kenya, where a 22-year-old woman has started an online errands company called Taskwetu. It assists Kenyans in the diaspora get tasks done at home.
A day at the Taskwetu offices. At the helm of the staff table is 22-year-old Leila Khalif. Leila is one of the co-founders as well as the chief executive officer of the startup, an online errands platform targeting diaspora Kenyans. Leila is an international relations graduate. She stumbled on technology last year when she decided to start the business.
I used to always look for ways to make extra money from school to, so I have that extra pocket money with me. So in primary, I used to sell candy. In high school, I used to sell also chocolates and, maybe success cards and stuff like that. Then in university, I got into baking.
Taskwetu loosely translates to task it to us. Using the platform, a client is able to delegate and track from their computers any errand tasked to the company. Since inception in August last year, they have carried out hundreds of tasks. Remittances account for the bulk of Kenya's foreign exchange earnings. Taskwetu is cashing on that, hoping to help those in the diaspora invest their money back home safely. She co-founded the company with a former classmate at the university. She remembers her fears on learning that the success of the business would depend on technology. But determined not to quit, she dove right into it. Being a young Somali woman in a technology-related business has not been easy for Leila.
I constantly feel the need to prove that us Muslim Somali women, yes, we can play these roles as business people, as entrepreneurs, but then now that light is not shed on that part.
When it comes to business, I don't look at the gender. It's the idea, it's the business, how we're going to move on to the next level.
The vote of confidence from her business partner and the NILAB, the startup's accelerator that incubated them and gave Taskwetu the seed capital, Leila is dreaming big. She hopes to tap into the East African diaspora in 5 years. Sarah Kimani, SABC Network, Kenya.
That's all we have for you from Ms. Phumelele Zondi and the rest of the team. Bye-bye. News Today is up next with Alicia Charlie.